Hi, it's Ken Dizzle, the Black British Cyclist, and welcome to the Black Cyclist Podcast. Today, we're going straight into it. We're talking cyclists and jumping red lights. I've gathered a load of facts and information. I've got some fact sheets on cycling statistics. I've chucked in the official highways code. I've got some stats and news stories on red light jumping, road safety, data and statistics from the Office of National Statistics on road casualties, walking and cycling. So I've got a whole load of stats, so much research that I'm leaving it to our AI host to sort through all that, and they've put together this podcast. So today we are going to look at the argument about, do all cyclists jump red lights, or is there something else at hand?
All right, so we're diving deep into cycling safety in the UK today. It can get a bit heated sometimes, right? Cyclists versus drivers, all that. But we're going to skip the drama and look at some cold, hard data.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of articles, reports, even some government stats, so we can really cut through the noise.
Yeah, like myth busting with data. I'm into that.
Yeah, exactly. And to help us sort through it all, we've got our expert.
Happy to be here.
So one article from Cycling Weekly really caught my eye, talking about police cracking down on cyclists jumping red lights in London. Something like 1,000 cyclists got penalized for it in the past year. And I mean, yeah, red lights are there for a reason. But when you compare that to some of the seriously dangerous driving offenses, you do kind of wonder if it's the best use of resources.
And that's exactly the question that the article raises. You know they're suggesting that this focus on minor infractions feeds this negative us versus them narrative between cyclists and drivers. You know, that whataboutery?
Yeah, that whataboutery point is really interesting. But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's look at a government report. Reported road casualties in Great Britain. Pedal Cycle Fact Sheet 2023 actually says that. Cyclist fatalities are statistically less likely to happen at junctions. So maybe this whole red light jumping thing isn't the biggest safety threat after all?
Yeah, it really makes you think twice about that.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at some of the more serious offenses out there. The ones the Cycling Weekly article mentioned: dangerous driving, illegal e-bikes, mobile phone use while driving, and of course, speeding. That's where the real concern is.
Okay, let's break those down one by one. There's an article from Intelligent Instructor called Driving Offense Stats. Gives us some pretty crazy numbers, like convictions for using a mobile phone while driving, up 90% in just 2 years. And get this, driving without tax convictions are up 94% year on year.
Wow, it's not a pretty picture, is it? And on top of that, drivers failing to comply with red lights and signs is at a 12-year high.
So we're seeing a significant increase across the board. Definitely something to keep in mind. But out of all these offenses, speeding seems to be the biggest issue, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. There's an article from Cycling UK called Common Driving Offences. It says there were 2.4 million speeding offenses in England and Wales alone in 2021. And that's just the ones that got caught.
Yikes.
Yeah, the real number's probably way higher.
It's a scary thought. And the same article points out that only half of all drivers actually stick to the 30-100 borough speed limit. Plus, speed was a major factor in about 25% of fatal crashes in 2022. That's a huge number.
It is, and it really puts things in perspective, when you consider how common speeding is and the potential consequences. It's obvious that it's a far greater risk than cyclists jumping red lights.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer when you put it like that. Now, there's this idea out there that cyclists are dangerous to other road users, especially pedestrians. But the Road Safety and Cycling Overview from Cycling UK challenges that idea. Yeah, it says that 85% of cycling happens on minor roads, where most pedestrian incidents occur. But here's the thing. Cycles are only involved in 2%. A pedestrian casualty is reported to the police.
Wow, that's a tiny percentage.
Right. It makes you question that whole cyclist is a danger narrative.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing is, the data shows that cyclists are way more likely to be the victims in a collision.
Oh, for sure. They're much more vulnerable. The article actually shares another statistic. Between 2012 and 2021, almost 500 cyclists died in car versus cycle collisions, compared to only 4 car occupants.
Yeah, those figures are really powerful.
They really highlight how vulnerable cyclists are and how important it is to have a balanced and informed view of cycling safety. Yeah, it really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
And speaking of changing perspectives, there's this cyclist, Ken Dizzle, the Black British cyclist. He does such a great job of promoting cycling safety, but in a really positive and engaging way. Are you familiar with his work? I love his YouTube channel. He's got those videos where he shares his rides, but then he also talks about safety. Always keeps it upbeat and encouraging, really genuine passion for cycling.
Yeah, it's so refreshing. It shows you can be passionate about cycling and still be super responsible and safety conscious. And actually that positive approach ties in with something from that road safety and cycling overview.
Oh yeah, tell me more.
So it talks about how important positive messaging is in road safety campaigns, because fear-mongering doesn't really work. If anything, it can discourage people from cycling.
Which could actually make things less safe overall.
Right.
Because of that safety in numbers effect. More cyclists mean more awareness from other road users.
Exactly. It's like a positive feedback loop. More cyclists, more visibility, more awareness, and ultimately a safer experience for everyone.
Right. It's not about cyclists versus drivers. It's about understanding and respect between everyone who uses the road. And that brings us to something really important. The highway code. People forget that it exists for a reason.
Yeah, it's the foundation of road safety in the UK. It's there to keep everyone safe. Drivers, cyclists, pedestrians, horse riders. And it's not just a random set of rules, it actually creates a hierarchy of road users.
Right, like someone walking is more vulnerable than a driver.
Yeah.
So the rules reflect that.
Exactly. And the newest version of the highway code is very clear about this hierarchy. It says that those who can cause the most harm have the greatest responsibility to reduce the risk.
Which makes sense, right? More power means more responsibility.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, some of the rules cause a lot of tension between cyclists and drivers. Things can get a bit messy in real life.
Oh, for sure. There are some gray areas, like the rules about cyclists overtaking on the left. That's a classic one.
Yeah.
And then there's overtaking vulnerable road users in general. Cyclists, horse riders, pedestrians, giving them plenty of space when you pass. Sounds simple, but it can be tricky.
Totally. And I think that's where someone like Kendall is great. He talks about being aware of your surroundings, anticipating hazards, communicating clearly. He really focuses on being a responsible road user, no matter how you're traveling.
Yeah, that's so important. It's not about winning or proving a point. It's about shared responsibility and mutual respect.
Right. It's about remembering that we're all just trying to get from A to B safely.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we're going through all this data and these reports, what does it all mean for the listener?
Well, I think the main thing is to take a step back from the heated arguments and look at the evidence.
Yeah, look at the real risks, not the perceived ones.
And honestly, the data shows that this focus on cyclists jumping red lights is kind of misplaced. It's distracting us from the bigger issues.
Like that increase in dangerous driving offenses. We need to shift the focus.
Absolutely. Instead of blaming each other, let's focus on changes that'll actually make a difference. Better infrastructure, stricter enforcement of traffic laws, more driver education.
And let's remember that cycling isn't the enemy.
It could actually be part of the solution. It's healthy, sustainable, and can contribute to safer roads for everyone.
It feels like we're getting somewhere with this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the more we can, encourage that mutual respect between all road users, the safer our roads will be.
It's about changing how we think about it, right? Moving away from that us versus them thing and realizing that everyone's got a part to play.
Yeah, and remembering that cyclists aren't all the same. You've got people like Kendall promoting safe cycling and challenging stereotypes.
Exactly. He's such a great example. Combining passion for cycling with responsibility and safety. Something we can all learn from.
For sure, whether you're driving, cycling, or walking, we all got to share the road responsibly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive today, here are a few final thoughts. We've gone through the data, we've challenged some assumptions, and hopefully we've shown you a more realistic picture of cycling and road safety in the UK.
We've seen that the real dangers might not be what we thought they were, and focusing on small things can distract us from the bigger problems.
Like that rise in dangerous driving. So where do we go from here? Well, for one, let's challenge our own biases. Think about the real dangers posed by different road users and see if your perceptions match the facts.
And use that knowledge to push for change. Better infrastructure, safer roads, a more balanced approach to road safety.
Because safe roads are everyone's responsibility. It's about looking out for each other, respecting the rules of the road, and making a safer and more harmonious environment.
And hey, maybe we'll see more people like Kendall, inspiring others to cycle safely and positively.
Wouldn't that be great? So next time you're out there, whether you're driving, cycling, or walking, remember what we talked about today. Let's forget the drama, focus on the facts, and work together to make our roads safer.
Sounds good to me.
That's all for this deep dive. See you next time.